Welcome back into the College Football Every Game on the Board podcast, week number 10, our final segment with our closer, Rob Vino, at Rob Vino Sports on Twitter. Robbie, welcome on in, bud. How you feeling?
I am good today, Drew. Another week goes by, week 10 college football season. Some things. I think next week we get our first, or is it Tuesday when we get our first kind of rankings, so that we kind of, the college football playoff rankings, where we can sort of figure out what the committee's thinking and what we might be staring at with a few weeks to go. So it's getting to be that time right now. And as a traditional lover of bowl season, I can't wait.
Oh, man, bowl season. Nothing like it. Yeah, it's right around the corners. We're already in week 10. It's going by so fast, man. And hey, everybody out there, thanks for tuning in on Twitter, on YouTube, wherever you're downloading your podcasts at. Every Game on the Board. We are going down in order here. This is the final segment. So it's 379, 380, down to the end of the card, starting Miami, SMU, and we're finishing it off with Hawaii, San Jose State. So a 14-game segment here with one of the best in the industry, Robbie Vino. Rob, first game up, Miami, SMU. Interesting handicap here. Early kick, 11 a.m. local time. Minus 11.5 to as high as minus 12.5. That is the Canes as the road favorite. 51 being the total. I like Miami this year, Robbie, but I think 12 points, that's a little hefty here. I'm looking towards the Mustangs. What's your view, Miami and SMU?
You know, it's the great equalizer, right, Drew? The point spread. And the odds makers sort of pushed me off of this game because I really wanted to play Miami. Thoroughly unimpressed with SMU offensively this season. Still haven't put anything together. Thoroughly unimpressed with all the press clippings and hype that came with Kevin Jennings when he took over as quarterback last year from Preston Stone. They seem to have gone backwards offensively, and now they're going to face the best defense in the ACC. So I thoroughly wanted to take Miami here. Was hoping to get less than this, lay less than this, try and get under 10 points. Didn't happen. Odds makers wise to that. Bettors were even wiser to that because they bet it up. I feel like every time I see Jennings play a pressure style kind of get off the bus physical team, you can tell when they get off the bus, that's what Miami represents, and they do pressure quarterbacks, and this guy just caves under pressure, Kevin Jennings. So I don't see SMU moving the football much in this game, Drew. Question is, can Miami do enough offensively to cover? I'm not sure. Under may be the best way to go in this one for me, 50.5 the total. I think these numbers are high in SMU games total-wise based on reputation, not on reality. So for me, I have to kind of pivot. If I don't think I can lay the 12 points with Miami, maybe I'll get to the under here, but I haven't played the game. I really want to play. I have a futures bet on SMU under 8.5 wins for the season. So obviously I could just sit back and hope Miami wins this game. And I think SMU would fall to 5-4. And that would probably do it for me. They even if they won their last 3 games, they'd only be an 8-4 team.
Like that, Robbie. Yeah, it looks like a good bet to this point anyway. Things can change. As we got next one up, same time, 11 a.m. local kick, staying in the Lone Star State, West Virginia at Houston. It is the Cougs, minus 13 and a hook as the home favorite, 49.5 being the total in Houston, Texas, Rob.
Yeah, Houston plus the 7 last week was the best bet on the show, Drew, against Arizona State. They came through with flying colors. They were up 24-6. Second half really had Arizona State on the ropes. I think that as this season has progressed, Houston's become a little bit more dependable where scoring points is concerned, especially against a defense like West Virginia's that doesn't stop many people. Last week, Houston got in the mid-20s against a very good Arizona State defense on the road. So what wasn't an asset to start the season, Houston was basically a defense-oriented team, has now become, a pretty good asset for the Houston Cougars, the ability to score points. So the betting pattern here kind of confused me, Drew, why they would bet Houston down 15 to 13.5. But I do think it's money that doesn't believe Houston's worthy enough offensively to win by more than 2 touchdowns. Now that it's under 2 touchdowns, I would say West Virginia is not worthy of accepting 13.5. The way they play defense this season, Rich Rod's had a very tough time getting the offense. They've been banged up injuries, right? I think they've been without their best wide receiver, best running back for since week 3 at this point. So it's been a experimental type year for West Virginia. Evaluation on Rich Rod's part. I think Houston's getting stronger as the season goes on, which is a characteristic of a Willie Fritz team. So I would lay it if I had to play this one. I'd lay it with Houston.
Rob, just real quick, who's the better coach, Willie Fritz or Rich Rod?
Well, I think just on longevity, I would probably say Rich Rod's got more on his resume. But when Willie Fritz puts as many FBS years together as Rich Rod has, he's going to be tough, Drew. He doesn't take top flight programs, right? Willie Fritz is in for these rebuilds, and he rebuilds really, really good. So I'm of the opinion, if you're just saying today, who would I rather have today? I'd rather have Willie Fritz. Career-wise, probably was Rich Rod.
And they couldn't be more opposite on the sideline. Yeah. Rich Rod's going to like blow a gasket and get so upset. And Willie Fritz is like stoic, right. Kind of like presidential type deal. It's kind of a stark difference between the two. All right, we'll move down the list. Kentucky and Auburn up next, 7:30 Eastern kick. So 6:30 local time on the Plains. Auburn Tigers, rarefied air here, Robbie. -11 as the favorite, 45 being the total. Kentucky at Auburn next up from Jordan Hare.
Yeah, I think we see value here that's unrecognized by the rest of the betting market so far. They have taken this total. Let me just go get my numbers right. They've taken this total from an opener of 47 down to 44.5 in some instances. And anybody who's paid attention, we actually cashed a 4% best bet last week on the Kentucky game over the total. Kentucky's turned into a throwing football team. It seems to me that Mark Stoops is in that position that we've seen so many head coaches in before, where he's just trying anything to save his job right now. He may not lose it because Kentucky's not one of those high intensity pressure type programs football wise, like Florida, like LSU, who have already unloaded their head coaches for lesser reasons. Mark Stoops probably has a little more rope. It's been a bad year, but the passing offense from this team for the last 5 or 3, let's just use the 3 weeks against SEC defenses, against Georgia, 225 yards, against Texas, 258 yards, last week against Tennessee, 330 yards. Auburn is in the bottom tier of SEC defenses against the pass, very good against the run, but very vulnerable when you throw it on them. And you can probably turn that right around, Drew, and say that Kentucky is very vulnerable against the pass too, where SEC defenses are concerned. So 2 teams that can throw it. Auburn obviously is led by the run game when they're right. I do wonder, Ashton Daniels played pretty good last week throwing the football. Do we see a quarterback change? I don't know that it could be any worse. But to me, the way these teams are going right now, as we enter the back quarter of the season, the final quarter of the season, Kentucky just looks to me like they're airing it out a lot more. Their pass attempts have gone way up. Their passing yardage has gone way up. It all correlates to the move at quarterback. They have a lot of trust in the new QB. So for me, it's going to be an overplay here. I'm going to get the best of the number here, 44.5, and play this one over.
Robbie, at first glance, I'd have no real interest in betting an Auburn game over, but that seems like a real sharp look. Like, you're finding where a team is changing. A lot of times in this business, that's the way to win. And yeah, that's a great point. Kentucky throwing the ball more. You can even find 44.5 out there as a total, which is very reachable in 2025 college football. So maybe looking towards the over there Saturday night on the Plains. We'll stay in the SEC, Mississippi State and Arkansas up next, 4:00 Eastern here. And we are seeing the Razorbacks. Woo, Pig Suey, -4.5 as the home favorite, 66 being the total. So Mississippi State and Fayetteville taking on Arkansas, Rob.
Well, we know Bobby Petrino has no trouble throwing it.
Oh, yeah.
And we know Jeff Lebby comes off of the Art Briles tree. So you got 2 extremely offensive-minded head coaches in this game. It's why the total is so high. But these Arkansas totals, Drew, are starting to climb to a point where I'm reluctant Is 66.5 against Mississippi State. I mean, a 42-24 game, you lose. 45-21, you lose. 38-28, you lose if you're playing over. So the odds maker might be to the point now where he's making these games high enough to still suck people in who see the offensive production out of Arkansas, the lousy defense out of Arkansas, and say, I'm just going to bet over blindly. It worked for a while. I don't know that it's going to work here. Second part of this is the side, right? Arkansas, a 4.5-point favorite, and colleague and friend of ours, Ski Prophet, I know he uses this a lot in basketball. If I can't trust you to get stops, I can't trust you to lay points. In Arkansas, you can't trust them to get stops. So it could be a spot for Mississippi State. However, I'm not, what's a good word for this? I don't have enough guts to go ahead and take Mississippi State at this low of a price tag. Just knowing that Arkansas can score in bunches very quickly. MSU, they've made some headway this year, Drew. I feel like they could even be, if they're not Arkansas State's equal at this point overall as a team, offense, defense, special teams, then they're probably just a slight half rung below. And taking points would make the most sense to me in this game. Like I say, I just don't have enough to pull the trigger here as of yet.
The cojones, Rob.
The cojones. Good word, Drew. Let me write that one down. Cojones.
What is that, Spanish or something? I don't think it's English. I'm not sure.
You have to tell me where that originates, Drew.
I'm not sure. Let us know out there if you know. But we got 12 noon Eastern for the next one, 387-388, Navy, North Texas. There was a lock of the week in the comments in the last video that this one to the over is the lock of the week. It's 65.5 as the total. -6.5 or -7, depending where you're shopping. That's the mean green as the home favorite. Navy, North Texas, high total here in Denton, Texas, Robbie.
Boy, and last year they couldn't have played a lower scoring game. Or was that Army? Maybe it was North Texas Army was one of the military academies. I might have them mixed up here. But I would just ask you, when's the last time you know, or in prior years where you would consider playing Navy over at this number, 65.5. But this year, when you go through their numbers, you'll find they're the slowest tempo team in FBS football, Navy. That immediately, and again, the narratives that get old and don't deal with reality, but the narrative would always be with Navy. They're going to run the ball. They're going to grind the clock. They're going to shorten the game, et cetera, bet under. And they still run the ball. They still go slow, but the difference is they gain yardage in chunks now. I think they're top 5 in yards per play due to the quarterback, Blake Horvath, who's a magician with the football at this point in time. And again, I'll repeat it. I say it every week, but when these military academies, I've said it about Air Force a few times this year, find a quarterback who can complete the passes, not just throw the football, but a guy who can complete the passes, because the style they play, these receivers run free constantly. And you just see Navy chalking up 7s, drive, 6 plays, minute 50, touchdown, 2 minutes, touchdown. It's uncharacteristic of recent, or not even recent, Drew, maybe 4 decades full of Navy football. So I can understand, with the opponent being North Texas, somebody saying over is the right play here. I wouldn't talk you off it, but I like the underdog plus the points. I got to say, Navy can keep pace with anybody in this conference where scoring is concerned. North Texas has to try and defend this like hybrid wing T that they installed last year. Brian Newberry, the head coach, has an offense that's tricky for all of these teams. So to me, when you're getting this many points with Navy, they're venue proof. The Navy team doesn't, get nervous under any stadium situation. So for me, even if it is a high-scoring game, I still think Navy plus the points is the right side.
Like it, Robbie. As we got next one up, we're heading to Monroe, Louisiana. ODU and UL Monroe. It is 55 as the total. And the Monarchs, heavy road favorites here. They've taken money. It opened 14. Now we're seeing 17 and a hook out there. So Old Dominion, heavy road favorites in Monroe, Louisiana to take on the Warhawks.
Yeah, this is interesting, Drew, because ODU, one of the better offenses in the Sun Belt for sure. But the last 3 weeks, not great defensively. Of course, they played two of the more explosive teams in the league in three of those games, James Madison and Marshall, who rung up 111 points on this ODU defense. Stuff like that immediately draws a red flag when you have to lay this type of number. However, UL Monroe has to be able to capitalize on that. They have to be able to score, and they just can't. It's 17 and a half points per game out of UL Monroe. 4 straight weeks now where they haven't exceeded 21 points. Beat last week by Southern Miss by 4 touchdowns. Beat the week before by Troy by 23 points. They've got 4 consecutive double-digit losses here, so they're prone to being beat by this type of number. I think ODU, it's a huge step down in class for them, so I can understand the money move, even though they haven't been great defensively. But they can, in all likelihood, they can put up 38 or more in this contest. The question for anybody betting it at this point is going to be, can Monroe get to 21? If you think they can get to 21, then I could see you betting the Monroe side. But I don't see enough rushing offense, passing offense, any type of offense out of Monroe, which basically leads you to a couple of things, Drew. Do you get a fluke defensive touchdown? Do you get a special teams play, something that helps your scoreboard output? Not so sure. I would probably single this game out and just zero in on Old Dominion's team total and just look at it from that lens. Every time ODU gets the ball, root for them to score points. I think they can probably do it. As we speak, I'm just going to get a number on this for you because I didn't have one pulled up. For ODU to cover this number, you need them to get to 35 if you want to lay huge juice, 37 otherwise. I don't know that 37 is out of the realm of possibility for this Old Dominion offense.
Robbie, next one up, we got this was Mid-Major Matt's best bet. He liked the Kansas Jayhawks team total over. We're talking Oklahoma State at Kansas, and it is KU minus 24.5, minus 25, 55.5 being the total. Some of his analysis was like Oklahoma State, getting to this point in the college football season. It happens every year. Finding teams to fade can be a great, just fade the team and just keep it simple. And that was part of his analysis in going against Oklahoma State. So looking towards Kansas here, Robbie, but laying a big number. Are you liking anything Oklahoma State at Kansas?
Well, there's no real argument to be made against Matt and the KU team total here. I mean, the only reason Texas Tech didn't get over their team total last week, basically because their number one quarterback, Baron Morton, didn't play, and their backup quarterback, Will Hammond, got hurt. So they were on a third-team quarterback. They had, I think, 21 points on their first 3 possessions. You get a quarterback injury. Not that Mitch Griffiths is a, true freshman or anything. He's been around the block a little bit. I believe he was with Wake Forest. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Griffiths was a quarterback with Wake Forest before. And he comes in, he hasn't taken hardly any snaps all season long. If he's taken one, and you're forced into this, and Texas Tech crew still scored 42. Oklahoma State's given up 40 or more to everybody. So asking Kansas, Jalen Daniels and company to get to 42 is not that big of a deal. I could understand it. There's just, Oklahoma State, what a disaster, right? 73 new faces to start the year. No interest in NIL players, et cetera, et cetera. Coach gets fired, Mike Gundy, after 20 some odd years because he doesn't want to play the NIL game. So defensively, they're too weak, Drew, for me to disagree with that take. You could probably lay the price tag here too, honestly. I don't know that Kansas is not a great defensive team, but this game is certainly a step down in class from the KU game last week. The only, I think the slightest argument you could make would be situational and say KU just played their rival Kansas State last week and, maybe they're flat here. I doubt it. I think they're pushing for a bowl bid. I don't have their exact record in front of me, but I think the Jayhawks need every win they can get to get into a bowl game. That's incentive enough for me. I think you could lay it with Kansas or do as Matt did and play over their team total of 41.5.
All right, Robbie, we'll head from Lawrence, Kansas to Lincoln, Nebraska for USC and Nebraska. 7:30 Eastern kick here in Lincoln. -6 at most shops. There is 6.5 out there. That's the Trojans is the road favorite. 59 being the total in this Big Ten matchup. USC and Nebraska, Rob.
Yeah, you have to either play it over or just stay out here if you're playing the over-under end of this game. USC, I believe they are. You know what? Let me just get it, Drew. I know I had it here. The number one team as far as, yeah, they are. The number one team as far as yards per play are concerned this season. They average almost 8 yards a play. Nebraska hasn't faced an offense like it all season long. USC is going to score. The weather is good. I checked it in Lincoln, Nebraska earlier today because when we get to this time of season, early November, you want to make sure that you're not dealing with any elements in these games. You won't be dealing with anything here. The passing game of USC probably has its way. The ground game of USC probably has its way. And Nebraska's going to have to keep pace. And USC has shown that they'll allow opponents to keep pace with them. Matt Rule is a guy who can devise NFL type, disguised defenses that can play with some quarterbacks. But I don't know that it works here, Drew. USC has become too well-oiled of a machine on the offensive side of the football. They do one thing well on defense, basically sack the quarterback. If they don't get to the quarterback, they really don't play the run all that great. They don't play the pass all that great. Michigan State's not even a good offense, but they had a dual-threat quarterback way back 5 weeks ago, and they put up points and yards against this team. So for me, over the total here, if you want to just stick with USC, you play their team total over 31.5. They probably get to 35 in this game, and Nebraska chases. I don't doubt that Nebraska can score 4 touchdowns themselves here, Drew. So 59, again, for those who play totals consistently like I do, these are key numbers, right? 59 has a lot of options that land that way, 58, 57. The high 50s are tough. They force you to get into a 61-point ball game, which means you need 34-27 here in this contest. I don't see why you don't get that unless you have some of these games that I see this year where teams drive length to the field, first and goal, turn it over, or 4th and 1 from the 1, get stoned. Those types of drives cost you. I don't know that those happen here.
Guys, we got about 4 or 5 games left. Hitting the chat box here for the live watchers on Twitter and YouTube. We got James in the house. He's talking about the North Texas game, thinking it will be 60 in the third quarter. Premium pick, Vino the GOAT. Absolutely a fan favorite here. Talking
Appreciate
about
you, Premium.
Yeah, for sure. Saying thanks for the best bet winner last week, which best bets on the every game on the board have been hot. 3-0 2 weeks ago, 2-1 last week. So hopefully keep that going. Robbie Vino nailing his last week. And good to see you in here, Zach. So a bunch of people chiming in. Always appreciate it. Any questions, fire away. And we'll continue. South Carolina and Mississippi, 7 o'clock Eastern kick here, 6 o'clock local. In Oxford, Mississippi, it is Ole Miss, -12.5 as the home favorite, 55 and a hook being the total. South Carolina at Ole Miss. Next up, Rob.
Yeah, how fun was it to watch Lane Kiffin actually jaw with the opposing team last week, walk in as an underdog off of a very bad loss the week before, a game where they had Georgia beat pretty soundly for 3 quarters. Then go out and blow it in the fourth quarter. But boy, Drew, as an 8.5-point dog last week, they bounce back. They win that game, and they do it, like I say, with offensive production that generally doesn't happen against Oklahoma's defense. Oklahoma's defense was top 10 in the country. Like I said, it was funny to see the Oklahoma kids telling Lane Kiffin he can't move the ball against them, and then he moved the ball at will against them. Trinidad Chambliss, the quarterback for Ole Miss, I just want to throw him out there because I haven't so far this season. I should have 3 or 4 weeks ago. A guy that didn't even earn the starting job, but was thrown into the starting job way back start of the season because of injury, has been amazing, Drew. All these other quarterbacks across the nation get a lot of attention. Trinidad Chambliss's name is not heard on any national broadcast ever when they're just discussing the landscape of college football. He should be talked about. He's led this team to some big wins. Ole Miss has a chance to end this season at 1 loss And I think they still have the possibility of making the SEC title game. They're going to win this game. The question is by how much. I think when you come off of two huge games like they just did, Georgia and Oklahoma, and of course you're in the SEC where every game is a big game. But I think when you come off of those two and now you're a double-digit favorite, opportunity to let down is there to be flat. And the Lenora Sellers and company have enough striking power to stay within this number. I think this game gets over because because Ole Miss scores on everybody whenever they want. And unlike last year, Drew, I will point this out too, because last year Lane Kiffin's Ole Miss probably had me yanking more hair out of my head than any team last year because they would turn sevens into zeros or threes. This year they go down, they get sevens. There's the touchdown team. So they're going to score there. South Carolina is a team that's had to have, I think, 7 different offensive line combinations so far this season. That's a lot to deal with. But Sellers had a nice game last week. I would say this game gets over. I would love to play Ole Miss, but I think situationally it probably builds a better case for South Carolina to sneak in under the number.
From the SEC to CUSA for the next two, Delaware and Liberty up next, 3:30 Eastern. We are seeing the Flames split line, -3 with juice or 3.5 as the home favorite, 51 and a hook being the total. So Delaware on the road taking on Liberty here, Rob.
Yeah, just have a hard time seeing Liberty as a favorite in any game this year, Drew. And it's an interesting season for them. Preseason favorites to win this conference just hasn't happened for them. They haven't been good all season long. Delaware, I think, has the number one offense in this particular conference. They seem to be able to get a lot of yards. They don't always turn it into points. I just moaned a little bit about 2024 Ole Miss driving me nuts. Delaware is kind of the same thing. Up and down the field, between the 20s, between the 10s. And then when it comes time to cash in, not always for the Delaware team. Quarterback Nick Minicucci's been really, really good. Last week he got hurt in that game. I don't have a full status on him simply because I haven't looked yet his playing status for this week. It makes a difference where Delaware's concerned. This total at 51.5 could be a little bit too high for a couple of reasons here. A, Liberty's still capable on the defensive side. B, Liberty hasn't shown us much on the offensive side, and we're 10 weeks into the season. And C, Delaware, like I mentioned, has a tendency to take touchdown drives and turn them into less than 7. So I think at this point, Drew, without having bet the game and without knowing the true status of Minicucci, I would probably say bet this one under. But that deserves a further look. Lynchburg, Virginia, by the way, the weather for this game, good. Look that one up as well. So you won't have a problem weather-wise with this game.
From Lynchburg, Virginia to Bowling Green, Kentucky, New Mexico State and Western Kentucky, also 3:30 Eastern kick. Hilltoppers -8.5 or -9 as the home favorite, 52 and a hook being the total, Rob.
Yeah, this is interesting, Drew, because Western Kentucky continues to get a lot of affection from bettors. They're probably more perception-based than reality-based this year. We've seen far better Western Kentucky offenses than what we've seen this year. Now, they've got guys. They just, maybe it's kind of like Liberty, haven't put it together. You can put it together against New Mexico State, no doubt about it. But New Mexico State, I just like them offensively. They have a receiver by the name of TK King, who came back into the lineup about 3 weeks ago and just took his rightful spot as the lead receiver on this team. And New Mexico State wings it around a lot, much like we're used to out of Western Kentucky. And New Mexico State moves the football. For me, when I see them each week, my inclination is to just play their games over. Not a great defensive team, but a team that gets it and gets yardage in big chunks through the pass game, kind of like what Western Kentucky used to do better than they do right now. But the two of these two together, I think the matchup just screams of over. Kind of surprised people have bet it from 54 down to 52.5, but it does create a window, an opening in those lower 50s for guys like me to sneak in now at 52.5 and go ahead and play it up and over the total.
Yeah, I could see that, Rob. Also, I had the underdog circled. I agree with a lot with what you said on New Mexico State's offense, and you can find 9 out there. So, yeah, good breakdown, Robbie. Just a couple games left. Next one up, 3:30 Eastern. The best named rivalry, in my opinion, the world's largest outdoor cocktail party, Georgia and Florida. We are seeing the Bulldogs -7.5 at most shops. There is -7 out there, Rob. 50 and a hook being the total. This is Everbank Stadium, home of the Jaguars. And I believe this is the last time it's going to be played in Jacksonville. I think it's what they're going to play it in Tampa and Atlanta for the next 2 years, I think, as they redo that stadium. I could be off on that, but either way, world's largest outdoor cocktail party, Robbie, and Georgia touchdown, if not the hook on the touchdown, as the favorite.
Yeah, and for such a high profile game, Drew, you would think I'd have much more to say about this one, but I have no conclusions on this one. I guess I'm a little bit I don't want to say stunned because I'm not stunned by a lot in college football, but shake my head a little bit at why the number is where it is. I think at first glance it looks a little low on a neutral field when you have Georgia against Florida. However, what you have to consider with Florida is they are playing out the string here under a interim coach, and all these kids. I don't know how many will hop into the portal, but everybody's trying to make a name for themselves right now. And this is a rivalry game. And in a rivalry game, 7 can mean a lot. Georgia has not shown us the ability to separate and provide great margin in a lot of games. So I can understand that side too. I guess when I break it down into good and bad for both sides, the Georgia team has the better personnel, I feel, on both sides of the football field. However, Florida has the situationals going for them. I think it'll be an emotional game for them. And I do think that neutral field helps the Florida side a little bit. And, we've seen lesser things happen in rivalry games. So +7 might be a way to go. A total I have no read on. So for those of you who want to bet this game and tuned in to say, I want to see what Rob has to say about Georgia, Florida, sorry, I can't help you here because I just don't have a lot of conviction in anything in where that game is involved.
Yeah, it's a tricky handicap. I had Florida circled, but like Robbie was alluding to, I thought the number would be a lot higher. I thought it'd be 10, and being able to get double digits in your pocket with the Gators would interest me, but it's not that. So I haven't bet it either, Robbie. We got 2 games left. Mountain West action up next. Southern California, Wyoming at San Diego State. This is a 4:00 local kick. -10 and a hook. That is the Aztecs as the home favorite. 41.5 being the total. So Wyoming, San Diego State up next, Rob.
The San Diego State defense has turned it on, Drew. They played Washington State way back in the second week when Washington State was a lot like Oklahoma State, right? All their players had jumped ship. Some went to Wake Forest with the head coach. Some went other places. But Washington State in a 2-team Pac-12 became a team with like 70 renegades trying out to get into the lineup for that team. And they smoked San Diego State, scoring 36 that day. And I thought, wow, it's Sean Lewis. That's what Kent State used to do. San Diego State doesn't do that. But since then, 0-3, 24-10, and 0 allowed by this San Diego State defense. The offenses that, scored those points, California, 0. We know California's a better offensive team than Wyoming. Northern Illinois can't play offense. Nevada doesn't play offense. Fresno's a mediocre offense. Colorado State's a mediocre offense. So none of them have been overpowering offenses, but neither is Wyoming. I think this game probably stays under. There was a minute there where I started to believe a little bit in what used to be called Flash Fast back at Kent, is now called Aztec Flash here in San Diego. There was a second where I started to believe that Sean Lewis had brought that offense with him, but it's dissipated. You can still cover this number on defense alone, as indicated by their 23-0 win against Fresno last week. Want no part of Wyoming, want no part of San Diego State, but I do think I might get to the under in that game. I think that's probably a good way to go.
All right, Robbie, we got last game on the slate. We'll get a best bet out of Rob as well. Hawaii, San Jose State, 9:30 Eastern kick here. So late night degenerate special, Robbie, and it is San Jose State -1.5 or -2, 56 being the total. I had this one circled to bet on San Jose State, Rob, off of a bye week. I thought this team's playing a lot better football, but they're going off as the favorite. And, man, Hawaii's been able to score some points now. So I haven't bet this one of yet, but good game in San Jose. What do we think in Hawaii, San Jose State, last game on the card?
Yeah, and Hawaii has turned it on offensively since Micah Alahado, the starting quarterback, has become healthy, right? There was a stretch in the first 4 games of the year where he was in, he was out. He played with that bad ankle, maybe week 3. But since his return, they've lit it up pretty good. And San Jose State's not a good defensive team. It always strikes me when I watch these San Jose State games and I see them in this air raid offense, and then I look at who their head coach is, Ken Niumatalolo, the ex-Navy head coach, just such a drastic polar opposite. But his quarterback, Walker Egan, has played exceptionally well throwing the football. Both of these teams are going to throw it around the lot, Drew, and without bad weather conditions, you have to believe that they can make it to this total. I don't know that either pass defense, either pass rush. San Jose State's pass rush is not is pretty good by Mountain West standards. So I'll take that back a little bit, but not enough to keep me off of over here. I think both of these quarterbacks go stride for stride, and we see something in that 58-59 point range, maybe a 31-27, maybe a 31-28, which gets you up and over this total.
Rob, great breakdowns as always. We got James in the house saying, Robbie, give us a Dave Koken story. I missed that, dude. Any good Dave Koken stories?
Well, I can tell you this. The first time I ever did a radio show in Las Vegas with Dave Koken, it was in a strip club. Dave used to do a lunchtime show from, I forget the name of the strip club in Las Vegas, but it was one of the more famous ones. But I walk in there and he's got no notes and he's watching, gold poles, and he still could respond to questions. So Dave, I tell you what, that was a guy, just real quick, for those, obviously the James here knows a little bit about Dave, but Dave was a guy always serious in the handicap, pretty much to the point all the time. There's not a lot of joking around with Dave Koken when you're discussing games. So I appreciated that out of him. But I will say, as somebody who had never done radio live from a lunchtime setting like that, it was interesting. And Dave knew how to handle it. I really had to lean on his expertise on how to handle that because I was out of my element.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. I got one as well. He told me a story about how he used to be a bookmaker way back in the day, even before he moved to Las Vegas. And he was up in the Northeast, and a guy owed him a bunch of money. And he worked at the horse racing, and he would be in charge of putting in the horses to run the race. And Dave was there, and the guy just came up to him. He's like, hey, I'm not going to be able to pay you, but if you want to, and now that he's passed away, I don't feel bad saying this on the internet, because what are you going to do? You can load up on this one horse and I'll fix it. And you can win the money that way. Would you agree? And Dave's like, yeah, we can do that. So he's like, all right, go on the number 2 horse. And Dave was like, I don't know who that 2 horse was, but it wasn't who they said in the books. And sure enough, he ran out there and won the race. So yeah, that's one that Dave would share sometimes on the radio. So I remember that story about Dave Koken. He was a guy that could definitely find some winners in different forms and fashion. But yeah, I miss him as well. Fun guy to work with as well. Robbie and I both worked with him at Wager Talk. And speaking of Wager Talk, Rob Vino obviously knows his college football. Number 1 in NFL at Wager Talk as well. If you want to go check him out, Rob Vino experts page, wagertalk.com. Robbie, great stuff as always, man. Did you have a best bet circled that you wanted to throw out there?
You know what? We're just going back. We started at 379. So as I go down this list, Drew, I'm going to take, I'm going to roll with the USC Nebraska game over the total. I just don't know that one stays under. Looking for the price on this is, well, they're 58.5 available. I don't know what you're willing to give me here, but if you shop it well enough, guys, you can find 58.5, which is kind of key because 59 has some pretty common landing spots. So give me USC, Nebraska. over the 58.5. And just real quick, as a proactive bonus, I got there last week. I talked about it earlier. I'll get there again this week. But keep an eye out on this newly found Kentucky passing game. That game against Auburn could wind up producing a lot more than 44.5. But best bet, USC Nebraska over the 58.5, if you're kind enough to give me that number, Drew.
Oh, yeah. I'm seeing a couple books out there with 58.5, Robbie. So we could almost kind of say widely available. It's probably a split line, 59 and 58.5, but you can definitely find 58 in a hook. USC Nebraska over the total. Follow Rob on Twitter at Rob Vino Sports. Robbie, anything else before we shut this down?
Again, thank you to the folks that are watching us now live, those that will watch us later in the day today, tomorrow, or Saturday as they prep for their college bets. We appreciate everybody, longtime followers, short-term, or people who have just joined us, I should say, and are catching on to the show for the first time. Appreciate all you guys, the comments, the chat section. A lot of good handicappers inside these chat rooms too, Drew, live chats. Bring a lot of guys out who provide good information. So thanks to all you guys as we make our way through Week 10 college football handicapping.
Absolutely. That does it for the Week 10 Every Game on the Board podcast. We will be back next week. For Robbie Vino, I'm Drew Martin. Check it out. Cash those tickets. Enjoy the weekend. Happy Halloween. Thanks for tuning in.